So today we're talking about your toes to bar, okay? And more specifically, we're looking at the part of the movement where you really need to push down into the bar to get yourself in a good body position to A, get your toes obviously up to touch the bar, but also then B, to be able to control your momentum on the way back down so you don't end up swinging backwards and forwards. This is a big thing, especially whilst you're trying to get to grips with your toes to bar initially, that can be quite difficult because obviously naturally when we think of your toes to bar, we're thinking about bringing your feet up as high as you possibly can to reach the bar and obviously using that kip to help, okay? But if your hips aren't quite in the right position, it can mean that when your feet come back down, you carry a lot of momentum with you on the way back down, you have a big swing back, and then that's really hard to control when you go into that next rep, okay? Which obviously when we're talking about stringing reps together, makes it really difficult and you end up almost having like a double swing in between each rep, which obviously is more time consuming, more fatiguing, and obviously it's not really teaching you the kind of movement pattern that we want you to get to grips with, which is going to help with other elements of your gymnastics. Okay, so the thing we want to look at, well, two things really, is obviously your body position and also that push down into the bar. Okay, so when we look at your body position when your toes are touching the bar, okay, ideally we want you to be in a position where your hips are behind the plane of the bar, okay? In that position, obviously naturally to allow that to happen, you're going to have kind of an inclined torso position as opposed to being almost parallel to the floor with your hips in front of the bar, okay, which is great for getting your feet up to the bar for a single rep, but like I say, it's going to carry a lot of momentum down with you into the next rep and make that rep a little bit harder, okay? So obviously to achieve that body position, like I say, that's where we really need to focus on that push down into the bar because that's what's going to help you get there, okay? And when we're talking about pushing down into the bar, we're thinking, obviously if you imagine you're hanging from the rig, literally just that straight arm push down movement at the same time as using your kip to bring your feet up, okay? Obviously timing is really important because if you try and do this on its own, it's a really difficult kind of strict strength movement that takes a lot of strength, whereas obviously if you're timing that with your feet coming forward as you bring them up to the bar and that natural kind of kipping motion, then those two things combined are going to make it a lot easier, okay? And obviously what that push down into the bar does is it moves your body backwards, it helps you move your hips backwards, so like I say, you end up in that kind of inclined torso position, all right? And we're using your lats to help with the movement as a whole, so we're also not just relying on your hip flexors, on your abs or your core, okay? We're using your lats to help you bring your feet up to the bar, okay? Which again makes it a much more efficient movement, means you're going to fatigue a little bit less quickly because you're not so reliant on one or two muscle groups, okay? So that's why we really want to focus on it. Obviously it's an easy thing to talk about, it's a harder thing to develop, okay, which is why, especially when you get into grips with the toes to bar movement, it can take, you know, a little bit of practice building strength in that position because it's not a position that you're likely to have done before if you've never done any kipping, okay? So obviously that's where things like your straight arm push downs, your ball ups, your tuck levers, all those kind of movements where we're reinforcing that position, we're really thinking about that push down into the bar is really going to help build that strength so that then when you do it in a toes to bar movement, when you've got the assistance from your kip as well, it should feel a little bit easier.